Hey, so this weekend there is going to be a tournament in Germany at Radaddel. I think it's called that. My German pronunciation is crap. I'm sorry, Thomas. Um, I do understand a bit of German, but my language, I'm not practicing it enough. So, this is going to be my meta analysis and prediction of bold action at Radaddel, the tournament in Germany. And let me just take you to my PowerPoint, the meta. So the event itself is 1100 points. You can take armies of and rulebook nations for those nations that don't have an armies of book yet. There are 21 players signed up at the time of recording, and it's still open. And if they don't get an even number, some of the WTC team, Thomas or Sebastian, someone will step in and play the tournament as well. So it's a pretty good spread of very competent players that are going to this tournament. The nations that have been taken, well, Germany is the most popular one, but there is a couple of surprises here. So 6 people are taking German lists, but 4 people are taking British and Japanese list. Japan is just as popular as Great Britain. This is very particular for Germany, but it is also something that I'm seeing. There's a slight resurgence in Japanese lists so far. And some players who have done well with them maybe are to blame for this resurgence, right? People are trying them out again, or, are sticking with their guns. And perhaps Japan has always been especially popular in Germany to play. Great Britain is also a little bit of a surprise that it is more popular than the US and the Soviets, but it does speak to the strength of the armies of Great Britain book. It is a power book, although it is not especially to my liking. As I've said many times, the play style is a lot more mechanized regulars than I normally enjoy. The US and the Soviets have 3 lists each. And then there's 1 French list. So unfortunately, it's the big 5 and not a lot of minor nations. It is what we're seeing at competitive tournaments. It is how it is. You take an army as of, and you get extra. Right. It's a thing. The order die spread for this tournament is also very, very weird. So it is 16.5 on average. But the spread is between 14 and 21. And if we go to the low end of the spectrum, 14, 15, 16, they sort of take there's a similar amount of people in each of these. But then there's a huge pile of people taking 18 order dice. It's absolutely the most commonly taken. And then there's 1 person taking 21 order dice. You know who you are. So It feels as if people are looking at order dice and going, right, at 1100 points, 18 is my cap. I am hitting that cap. And it's not the cap for this tournament. So it's quite weird. The distribution here of order dice is very, very unusual. If we look at the meta of what's been taken, there are 5 company commanders, which is a good amount of company commanders. It's, 25% of the lists. So it's a good amount of company commanders for us to start analyzing after the event. How did lists with a company commander do? Did they do better on average or worse on average? There's also 5 multi-rocket launchers. Now, I've been stating online that multi-rocket launcher seems to be a German thing, but maybe it is a resurging thing in bold action as well, since the German team at the WTC took not all multi-rocket launchers, as Thomas pointed out to me, but took more than was expected and did very well with them. So maybe we can also do a little bit of analysis after this tournament on multi-rocket launchers. Those 5 multi-rocket launchers, did they do better or worse? There are not many regulars, so that's pretty much what we're seeing in all tournaments. It's either inexperienced or it is veteran. Unless you're doing small teams, then it sort of becomes a little funky if you're doing 80 rifles or what have you. There are very, very few 9+ tanks. There are 3 9+ tanks, I believe, being taken for the event, and 2 of them are Kugelblitzes, which is one of the affordable Death Stars. There are 6 artillery observers, so also the artillery observers are being taken in massive numbers and not in the places that we would expect to see them. It's not all British or French artillery observers. There are German artillery observers being taken. So that also is something that we can afterwards go and analyze on. There's 1 Soviet artillery observer being taken. I'm very excited about this one. It is the Soviet flying tank. So we'll see how that goes, whether there is something there. There's lots of special deployment and movement troops, infantry troops. So there's lots of infiltrating infantry. There's lots of fieldcraft infantry, and there's lots of Rangers lead the way infantry. All of that is just it's how we run infantry now. Since Warlord Games has made a game of shooting, the only way your infantry can win games, and you have to win games with infantry, is by either being very, very survivable in huge numbers or veterancy, or by having special abilities, which is what people are leaning into. There's also lots of mortars, including some UFO builds. Love them. I love them to bits. It was my first love of V3 was the UFO, with a lot of mortars. So most of the mortars being taken are light mortars, but there's also a fair amount of medium mortars. And then there is a good mix of guns in more or less equal amounts between howitzers, anti-tank guns, and AA guns. We will see how that plays out. Normally, what we see in tournaments is that gunline armies that lean into guns, don't do especially well. But, it is a lot of bombardment that we are seeing here in Germany. So it might actually work, build into that, and it also might do something, some sort of anti-tank duties, depending on table densities. We shall have to see. So the list builds are: bombardment seems to be king in Germany. There are 9 lists that have bombardment elements, so either a multi-rocket launcher or an artillery observer or something like that, like a huge amount of mortars, so you can do a lot of indirect shooting. The indirect shooting that will force the opponent to do something, right? There are 9 lists. That's almost half. That is a lot of bombardment going on. There are 10 lists that have 4 or 5 or more pieces of armor, which is pretty normal. Maybe even a little low, depending on what tournament type you're looking at. Half of the lists have most of the armor. Okay. There are 6 lists that have MSU. There are 2 Hordes, 2 Death Stars, and 1 Tank Hunter list, which could be very clever with all that armor. My predictions: I think that 1 of 3 people is going to win. Either it will be August Tadeo with his 18 orderized Tank Hunter German army list, mostly mechanized. It is MSU, so he's vulnerable, but it's all mechanized, so he can protect them in his vehicles if he gets the right tables. It could also be Dominic Snyder, 18 orderized mixed Germans, 5 Panzers, very strong army list. Or it could be Manuel, who is bringing the 21 orderized MSU Brits with bombardment, so 2 multi-rocket launchers and 5 pieces of armor. Also very strong list, and something that I've seen Manuel play before, not with Brits, but with other armies. So, he knows how to work that. For me, the rest are just too close to call. It's all like power 3, power 3.5 lists. So that is all very, very close, and I can't really predict what will happen there. What will I be watching for? Well, I'll be watching to see if the company commanders make a difference. I'll be watching to see if MSU can actually survive with that much bombardment going on, because you have a lot of units on the table and all of them are vulnerable to a sudden hit. I'll also be watching to see if Hordes can do well and if Japan can do well. It's one of those things where one of the big nations have been missing from the game a little bit. I know there are individual people who have done well with Japan, but can we bring them back in most of the meta? We shall have to see. So Thank you so much, Thomas and Sebastian, for sending me all the info. If you want to go and check out lists, link will be in the description. I'll also do a review of a couple of interesting ones at some point. And thank you to the Bold Action community of Germany, from whom I just stole images for this PowerPoint. So yeah, good luck this weekend, and I will see you next time. Cheers.